Well, welcome back to the When I Heard This podcast. My name is Nate Robbins. I'm here with Pastor Joseph Tillman, MDiv, student redeemed. Wait a minute.
Nope.
You're a full D-min now.
I'm a full D-min.
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
When's your party?
I don't know. Like, party's kind of already happened, I guess. In some ways. No, not really.
I wasn't there.
Well,
So
I mean,
no party happened.
I mean, no. The church gave me some cards and stuff, so that was cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So they recognized me on a Sunday morning. Yeah. So that's been about it. So.
Sound less excited.
No, I'm thrilled about the fact that that I've got a doctorate now. I mean,
Cool.
I'm not gonna lie, that's awesome.
No Greek school allowed.
No Greek school to allow?
No.
What do you mean? Like, I can't go study
No.
more in depth in Greek?
No.
But I kind of want to.
No.
I'll take a year off, and then I'll do it.
No.
That's my plan.
Spend 1 minute with a child. Any one of them.
Just choose one of the kids to be like, you're it. You get more attention now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, but like, even in the midst of all of this, like, I've not missed one baseball practice, not missed gymnastics.
Baseball practice?
Yeah.
You go to all the practices?
I take my,
you
my
don't
kids.
just drop them off and...
No. Now, I usually take them to the practice, and then what I've been doing the last few years is sitting there studying while they're practicing.
Right.
Yeah. But now, I just get to go and watch practice and hang out, and it's awesome. So,
Cool.
yeah. So...
Well, this doesn't seem as exciting as I thought it was going to be.
No, it's real. No, I mean, I'm pumped. I'm sorry if I underplayed it or whatever.
Cool. Full
Yeah.
D-min Joseph.
Yes.
Is it D-min Pastor Joseph or Pastor Joseph D-min?
Yeah. So if you're using that, it would be Pastor Joseph D. Min.
Okay.
If you're doing it the other way, it'd be like Pastor Dr. Joseph.
Okay. So, welcome back to the When I Heard This podcast. My name is Nate Robinson, and I'm here with Pastor Joseph D-min.
There you go.
And only D-min. And that's it.
That's it.
Perfect.
I mean, I've still got the MDiv.
Nah, but that doesn't matter anymore.
No, I mean,
That's useless.
the D. Min trumps it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Read the ad again.
Okay, here we go. Before we get started today with our questions, we want to shout out our sponsor, the Discipleship Group. The Discipleship Group is a systematic training for Christians who want to go deeper and grow stronger in their relationship with God. In these courses, Dr. Jay Zen brings you over 4 decades of study, pastoring, and teaching to equip the saints to make disciples. The Discipleship Group is a series of 6 books, each book consisting of 26 weeks. Therefore, it's 3 years of study. Each week has articles written by the author to read, a chapter from a supplemental book, like The Passion for God or More Than a Carpenter, The Master Plan of Evangelism, and there's scripture readings each week from the Old Testament, New Testament, and the Psalms. I've used the Discipleship Group resources for over a decade. I've used them in groups of 2 to 3 people. I've used them in small groups up to 12 people. And I can tell you, as a pastor, as someone who spends a lot of time making disciples and meeting with others, that the Discipleship Group resources are the best that I have found for growing in our faith and for encouraging us to go and make disciples ourselves. Go to discipleshipgroup.com, check out their resources, find out information about Dr. J, and I'm telling you, you will not regret it.
Incredible.
I'm so good at it.
Yes, you are.
Wow.
We should stop talking about it.
Yeah, whatever.
It's the ad. Today we're talking about weird Bible stuff.
Yeah.
The weirdest creatures that exist in the Bible.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of the things that are in the Bible. I don't know if all of them are the weirdest things, but they're definitely different.
Like the dragons and the centaurs and the griffins.
No, not all of those things
and
are.
the chupacabras.
No, those things aren't all of the Bible.
And Sasquatch.
He's my favorite, but he's not in the Bible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you wrote me a list, so we're just going to run down them.
All right.
First off, go to Patreon. It's $5. It's a website that you can go to, and it's got you can go to there for money and watch shit. You can do that. You can also go to the shirt store on our website.
Yep.
Where there's shirts and mugs and tees.
Right.
And sweaters and overalls.
We don't have sweaters or overalls.
We have sweaters.
We have sweaters?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it's the summer, so I shouldn't bring that up.
No.
We have tube tops when I heard this for the summer.
No.
All right. And then you can go to all the social medias where you can like and subscribe and comment and tell us what creature's your favorite.
Yeah. Talking about, I mean, come on. We need more excitement in that part, too.
In this part of the intro?
Yeah, we need more excitement.
Well, you weren't excited about graduating, so I'm not excited about anything else. I thought this was going to be more important.
No, I am excited about graduating.
Whatever. Anyway, let's get started with the podcast. Okay, Pastor Joseph.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about the talking snake.
Okay, there's a talking snake. Yeah, so in Genesis 3.
It's really hot down here.
It is.
Anyway, tell me about the talking snake. It's hot where the talking snake is, too.
This is true.
Yes.
This is true. All right. All right. And so in Genesis 3, there's a serpent that comes into the garden. So, like, we're 3 chapters into the Bible.
Yeah. And there's already talking animals.
Right. And so in chapter 3, verse 1, it says, "Now the serpent was the most cunning of all the wild animals that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, 'Did God really say you can't eat from any tree in the garden?' And then the woman said to the serpent, 'We may eat the fruit from the trees in the garden. But about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God said, you must not eat it or touch it, or you will die.' 'No, you will certainly not die,' the serpent said to the woman." And the conversation continues on. But yeah, so you've got Eve talking to a snake.
Right.
And it doesn't seem to faze her at all. Right? Like the snake comes up, starts talking, and she's like, "Talking snake, good deal. I'll have a conversation with him." And
all right.
And so, yeah, so most people would say this is or not, let me rephrase that. There's not most people, but there's a lot of people who might think in reading this is just a fable. Like, it's not real.
Okay.
It's just it's a story maybe illustrating a point or a principle or something, or like introducing the idea of sin or those kind of things. But it's actually not a real snake talking to Eve. And so the story is more like just made up. And
so they're on drugs.
Well, I mean, that's whatever. But for me, I mean, I take it as literal. So
okay,
I think it's a real story. It's a real snake talking to a real person.
All right. So there's a talking snake.
Right.
So how are there talking animals
at this point?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things is, at this point, sin's not entered into creation,
except that this is supposedly Satan.
Yes. Yes.
So isn't he full of sin? So doesn't that mean sin entered creation?
Well, okay, there's not sin in the world. Okay. And I get what you're saying. Like, okay, yes, if Satan is the personification of sin, or if Satan himself is evil, yes, that's true. But creation itself, so when I say creation itself, I mean humanity and the actual physical world around them, okay, have not, quote unquote, fallen into sin. Okay. And so everything at this point is perfect in the garden. And so in comes walking the snake. And so the question is, were there animals that were actually talking
right
prior to that? And
any of the animals.
Right, any of the animals.
Because Eve wasn't fazed.
Yeah, because Eve wasn't fazed at all by the fact that the snake was talking to her.
Oh, so pre-sin, all the animals just talk to each other.
I mean, that's a theory. It's because, like, so for example, you know, in just if I go up one more chapter or go back one chapter in Genesis 2, it says all the animals were coming up to Adam. He was naming all the animals.
Right.
And then it says that God.
You're Jeff.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah. Was he naming the so does that mean he was giving them like specific names, or was he actually naming
Like the kind.
Like the kind of animal.
Yeah, in other words, like, are you like lion, right?
Right.
Like you're a lion, or
Yeah.
was he saying
Yeah.
you're Craig?
Right.
You know, like, I mean, that's a good question.
Okay.
And so, like, but what I'm saying is, like, God actually says, well, let me just read it. It'd be easier if I just read the passage.
Okay.
Because God actually comes to the garden, notices that Adam's, talking to the animals and hanging out with the animals. All right. So in Genesis 2, verse 20, it says, the man gave names to all of the livestock, to the birds of the sky, and to every wild animal. But for the man, no helper was found corresponding to him. And so the Lord actually looked at man and said, it's not good for man to be alone. Like, in other words, he's got all the animals around him.
Right.
But he's still alone. Like, there's no one that's as like an equal to him. Okay.
He was watching all the animals do it.
Well,
And was like, where's mine? And just had to sit there while every animal around him was having a good time, and he was the only one that was alone.
right. I mean,
That's the worst. And they all could talk and make
That's
fun
the
of him for
worst.
not having anybody.
so Craig and Jeff
Yeah.
are over there making fun of Adam. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but in light of that, it's an interesting thing. I've never thought about it that way before ever. But the animals, yeah, they would have been having sex, right? And it's holy, it's good, no big deal. Like, we're not not a weird thing. And so, but yeah, there's the thing with Adam is that he's been given authority over them, right?
Right.
Over the animals, like,
so he could have told him to stop and
dominion.
go away.
Well, I guess, yeah.
Okay.
Y'all go do that over
Yeah.
there, right? But he's been given dominion over them, so they're not an equal with Adam, right?
Okay.
And so,
So why couldn't he tell the talking snake to go away? Or could he?
oh yeah, he could have,
Oh.
right?
But they didn't, and
But-
that's why everything
Right,
else
but
happened.
Eve
Okay.
entertained the conversation.
All right.
Like, at any point in time, Eve could have been like, nah, go away. Not interested.
Okay.
Yeah. So, talking snake, do I think it's a fable? No.
Okay, so in another part of the Bible, God talks out of his ass. What's up with that?
Okay. If you're referring to the fact that God talks from a donkey.
Yes,
Yes.
but the Bible uses the other word, so
there are times, yeah, depending on translation.
yeah.
Yes.
Take that, good view.
Why are we
Censor me now.
Why are we challenging good view? I don't think that's a good.
The Bible says that there's a talking ass.
Right. Okay.
Got him.
All right. So yes, there's a story in
About a talking donkey, yes.
yes, in Numbers 22, we got a talking donkey.
Oh, I thought it was in the New Testament.
No.
Isn't there another one in the New Testament?
Nah.
Or does a donkey get possessed? Something else happens with a donkey in the New Testament.
That's okay. You may be thinking of Paul.
Yeah,
Paul's on a donkey.
yeah.
Yeah, and then Paul, and then the Lord actually appears before Paul.
Oh,
Yeah.
not in the donkey.
No.
Okay,
No.
so this, okay.
This is a completely different. Yeah. No.
Well, I was off.
There is no talking donkey in the story with Paul in Acts
Okay.
9. No.
All right,
No. So
cool.
no, this is
Old Testament donkey then.
right. Old Testament donkey in Numbers 22.
Okay,
And so there's this individual named Balaam. Okay.
okay.
And he has been charged by the Lord to go speak for the Lord. He doesn't want to do it. And so,
So a donkey does it for him?
and no, so here's Balaam, and Balaam's like trying to go off, and then God becomes upset with Balaam and and Balaam's riding this donkey. An angel of the Lord appears, and so donkey sees the angel of the Lord. Balaam doesn't see the angel of the Lord.
Okay.
And so the donkey was like, nope, and then all of a sudden the donkey is like, yeah, no, we're not doing this. And so he tries to go off the path. Okay.
Okay.
Balaam gets mad, hits donkey comes back on. And so this happens a couple more times where angel appears before the donkey. Balaam doesn't see the angel of the Lord. Donkey doesn't. Finally, the donkey just sits down.
This is how horror movies start.
I wouldn't know.
The animals see it before the humans.
Oh.
And they're like, what's wrong? And then the animal's dead later.
So is that the way it always goes?
Yep.
Man, poor animal. But anyway, so Balaam sits down. I'm sorry, the donkey just sits down with Balaam on him, and then Balaam is just furious that the donkey is just not doing what he wants the donkey to do. So then he just starts beating the donkey. Okay.
Okay.
And then
so he's beating God.
He doesn't know he's beating the Lord's what will be the Lord's spokesperson, if you were, or spokesanimal, I guess in this case. So in verse 28, it says, "Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth."
Okay.
And she asked Balaam, "What have I done to you?"
Oh, the donkey was a girl?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So God's a woman.
Oh boy, I had a feeling you were going to go there with this. No, God does not have gender.
Ah. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Fine.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's
just fun to say that and make you say the other thing every time.
Yeah, I know. He's just a spirit. Okay. All right. Don't get all freaked out by this. All right. All right. So the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and she asked Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have beaten me these 3 times?" And Balaam answered the donkey, "You made me look like a fool. If I had a sword in my hand, I'd kill you now." So Balaam's a little upset, but he's still just talking to the donkey.
Okay.
The donkey said, "Am I not the donkey you've ridden all your life until today? Have I ever treated you this way before?" "No," he replied. And they're just having a full-on conversation. And then it says, "Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the path with a drawn sword in his hand. Balaam knelt down low and bowed in worship on his face. And then the angel of the Lord asked him, 'Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times? Look, I came out to oppose you because I consider what you are doing to be evil. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If she had not turned away from me, I would have killed you by now and let her live.'" And so, so you've got another instance of a talking donkey and Balaam just responding back. But unlike in Genesis 3, when we can say, well, but creation was perfect, garden was perfect, talking animals may make sense back then.
Okay.
In this situation,
no one had seen one for a while.
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, you've got a talking donkey, and Balaam, same thing. Like, it doesn't seem Balaam seems to mind the fact that there's this donkey talking to him.
Okay.
And so
that's a very confusing story.
Why so?
Because why would God, the donkey, be afraid of an angel?
But God's not the donkey.
But he was the donkey.
No, he was speaking through the donkey.
Okay.
But it was not like God and the donkey are one.
All right.
It's like, yeah,
there's also some trickery where it's like, I'm going to reveal myself to the donkey and not the person. Like, it's a weird story.
Well, I guess also
and there's a talking donkey in it.
Right. But I think it's also kind of making a point, right? Like, he's trying to show Balaam's blindness, right? To the Lord, to the things of the Lord, because Balaam is supposed to be a prophet.
I feel like a lot of people in the Bible got done with these little, like, confusing lessons and were like, you could have just told me.
But, well, we might say that, but how often do we go, you could have just told me? And someone be like, well, I did tell you, and you still did this stupid thing.
I mean, that's true.
I mean, that happens all the time, right?
I guess the more I do stupid things, the better the chances that I'd see a talking donkey.
Maybe.
All right.
Yeah. And so the next time you see
challenge accepted.
So the next time you see a talking donkey, be like, all right, I need to listen up because the Lord may be speaking. Okay.
There's an angel with a sword somewhere. Let's go find him.
Right. And if I don't listen, the angel may kill me.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
the talking donkey.
That's talking donkey.
All right, next. Okay, the next one we got is 2 things.
Okay.
It's the cherubim and the seraphim, and you said put these ones together in the same question.
Yes. Yeah, because they're both heavenly beings.
Okay.
That have some distinctions, but they're fairly similar in the way they look. Yeah. All right.
Go for it.
All right. So in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 2, it says, "Seraphim were standing above him. They each had 6 wings."
Wait, I thought these were in Revelation.
Oh, they're in Revelation too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I'm gonna. Well, yeah. We'll get to what's talked about in Revelation.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Isaiah 6, verse 2, seraphim were standing above him. They each had 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they flew. And one called to another, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of armies. His glory fills the whole earth. All right, so this is where we're introduced to seraphim. Okay, and so
are they spirits, or are they
they're
things?
They're creatures of some form. You know, and so whether we'll hear them referred to as like living creatures in another part in Revelation you're talking about, and so. But what that looks like, I'm not, to be honest with you, fully sure.
All right.
So that's seraphim. Now let's get to the cherubim.
Okay. I know what these are.
Okay. We'll see if you know what they are. All right. So cherubim are mentioned throughout. We'll use Ezekiel 10 as the passage. Okay. So they're mentioned throughout Ezekiel 10, and it's an interesting description of them. And so what it says, I'm going to skip down to verse 12 in chapter 10. It says their entire bodies, including their backs, hands, and wings, and the wheels that the 4 of them had, were full of eyes all around.
The wheels?
Yes.
What is it?
All right. So in Ezekiel, you have these visions that Ezekiel starts having all the way in chapter 1, where it talks about the fact that there's like wheels within wheels, and it's just getting into this like
wheels.
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry.
You said wills. Oh.
Sorry, my southernese came out. My bad.
Okay.
Yeah, like
wells. All right.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Yeah. So
they have wells on them. The wells on the butt.
Right. Yeah, around.
Okay.
Right. Wheels.
Okay.
Yeah. See, my wife is an English teacher, and she constantly gets on to me about how I do not pronunciate things very well.
Pro what? Anyway, keep going.
All right. So, all right.
Just read better now.
I'll try. I thought I was reading pretty good before. All right. I am a doctor, you know.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I will put myself in my place then.
Yeah. So simmer down over there.
Go
all
ahead,
right. Verse 14. Verse 14. Each one had 4 faces. One was the face of a cherub, the second the face of a human, the third the face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an angel. And the cherubim ascended. These were the living creatures I had seen by the Chabar Canal. And it talks about when the cherubim moved, the wheels moved beside them, when they lifted their wings to rise from the earth. Anyway, so it's another vision of these heavenly creatures. And throughout Old Testament, you have these what's kind of called throne room visions, where the individual, whether it be Ezekiel in this case or Isaiah in the previous case, are like taken into the throne room of the Lord, and they're the ones that begin to see these creatures, and they're describing them the best way they can. Okay. So they're given the best language they know to give to what they're seeing, because they're seeing things very different than what they've ever seen before. So like when it says the cherubim, for example, like the cherubim appear to have the form of human hands under their wings, right? In other words, it looked like it appeared like it. Not saying it was that. It's just the appearance of it. And so they're doing their best.
Why aren't these things in Genesis 1? Like why doesn't Genesis 1 say that God created all the creatures of the heavens or something?
Right. Yeah. No,
and describe, which would mean these things.
Right. The seraphim, the cherubim. Yeah. I mean, I guess you can ask the Lord
Were they there already?
Yeah. So I think in Genesis 1, what we're getting is more of the picture of the earth being formed, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So, in Genesis, it's really focusing more on the earth, right? And the creation of the earth,
Okay.
right? And then what's being developed on the earth. So it's not really speaking about all that's happening in the heavenlies. So we also don't get the painted picture in Genesis of things that are happening prior to the earth being created.
Okay.
So for example, Satan and Satan falling and all that, right? We don't,
Right.
That's not there either. So really, Genesis 1 is saying, all right, here's kind of earth being formed going forward. So these creatures are existing prior to that.
Okay.
So the Lord created them at some other point prior. And so they
just look insane. And they're in wheelchairs.
they're not in wheelchairs.
Okay.
But yes, but yes, they do look insane.
All right.
They do look pretty horrifying.
Okay.
I mean, that's why he's trying to describe their faces, trying to describe their
and this isn't
their
people
wings.
on drugs, right?
No,
None of these things are people on. Okay.
None of these people. None of this.
All right. I feel like I need to ask you that on everything because that's a good critique for the whole Bible.
Right. It's just the druggies write this. Yeah. No, druggies didn't write this.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is like what they're seeing.
So we're gonna see those in heaven, unless they're dead.
No. Yeah, we're gonna see them in heaven.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're absolutely going to see them in heaven.
Do they mate and make more of them, or are they?
I don't think so.
Eternally living things.
Yes, they're just the four living creatures.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right. So going back in Ezekiel to chapter 1.
Oh, so there's only 4.
Of what we end up describing as like the cherubim.
So there could be other crazy things.
But sure.
He just only saw 4 of them.
Yes. Yeah, there's no telling what we're going to actually see.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like in Ezekiel chapter 1, it says the likeness of 4 living creatures came from it, and this was their appearance. They looked like something like a human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings, which is a little different than the seraphim, who had 6 wings. So these have 4. Their legs were straight.
Losers.
Right. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the hooves of a calf, sparkling like the gleam of polished bronze. They had human hands under their wings on their 4 sides. All 4 of them had faces and wings.
On their 4 sides?
Mm-hmm.
So they have wings sticking out in 4 directions.
Yes.
Like a weather vane.
Yeah, it's wild.
Okay.
Their wings were touching. The creatures did not turn as they moved. Each one went straight ahead. Their faces looked like something like the face of a human. That's what I was talking about. Like it's something like that. And each of the 4 had the face of a lion on the right, the face of an ox on the left, and the face of an eagle.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what their faces.
At this point, why even describe it?
This is what their faces were like. Yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely.
You know what I mean?
These are definitely different.
He could have just said, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." It saved himself some ink.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
because they were definitely looking a little crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Heaven's gonna be wild, yo.
I think it is going to be pretty wild.
Okay.
I think we're going to be in it's going to be definitely different.
All
All right. So now to what you're talking about. Like you mentioned, like you thought these guys were in Revelation, right?
Yes.
So in Revelation chapter 4, once again, we have another throne room scene. Okay.
Okay.
So this is all happening as these individuals are looking up.
Like Star Wars. How they always end up in throne rooms at the end of the movies.
Do they? They do, don't they?
Yeah.
Is every one of them that way?
Yep.
Are you serious?
Not everyone, but most of them.
A lot of them?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Learn something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So,
cool. More throne rooms.
Yeah, more throne rooms. So, and again in Revelation chapter 4, verse 6, 4 living creatures covered with eyes in front and in back were around the throne on each side. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. Each of the 4 living creatures had 6 wings, and that's kind of seemingly going back to the seraphim. They were covered with eyes around and inside.
Covered inside?
Yes. They were covered, eyes everywhere.
Okay.
And day and night, they never stopped saying, "Holy, holy, holy, the Lord God the Almighty, who was and who is to come. And so again, here once again we're talking about these four living creatures. And
so when we get to heaven, they're just going to be making noise all the time.
I mean, not just making.
How are we going to sleep with these animals outside? Just
right.
just chanting,
just
all
shouting,
night.
All day. I don't know. I don't know. Do we sleep?
I mean, they call it eternal sleep.
That's an eternal rest. Right? But I don't know.
You're the doctor.
No, well, that's Like all I'm saying is I don't know if we even need sleep.
Oh, I get to say that all the time when you don't know stuff. I just realized. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, all I'm saying is there's, heaven. We have these bits and pieces of what heaven might actually look like.
Okay.
And it is going to involve,
and at least one thing is these
four
interesting
weird things, four living creatures
constantly talking.
Yes, okay. Constantly saying, "Holy, holy, holy."
All right.
The Lord God Almighty.
Cool.
So yeah.
Okay. The next crazy thing in the Bible is there's a dragon.
Yes, there is.
Okay. And this one's in Revelation.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only in Revelation.
Only in Revelation.
They never talk about dragons anywhere else.
Nope. Just here.
Okay.
All right.
So
in Revelation,
do this one now.
Yeah. So in Revelation chapter 12, it speaks about a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so it speaks.
I like this story.
Okay.
This is the story about the woman with the son.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. The story in of itself is crazy.
Yes.
And then you bring a dragon into it,
right.
and it gets even weirder.
Seemingly. I like this one.
Okay.
This is my favorite part of the Bible.
This one chapter
yes.
is. And what's interesting about this chapter is that it's actually kind of an interlude in the midst of everything else that's going on in the midst of Revelation. It's just like you have all these like the seals and all that, and then all of a sudden it's like woman, child, dragon, right? And so, but yeah, a dragon is introduced, and so you want to read the story, or you want me to just tell about the dragon?
I mean, just tell the story. Don't read the story.
All right.
It's like a whole chapter, right?
Yeah, it's like a whole chapter.
Yeah, okay.
So so there's...
Go read it yourselves.
Yes. We encourage you to go read it yourselves. All right.
Because it's cool.
Because it's fantastic. All right. In Revelation 12, so there's this woman, and she's pregnant, okay?
Yep.
And then she's about to give birth, and then all of a sudden this dragon appears. Right. So in verse 3 it says, then another sign appeared in the heaven.
But she's wearing the sun.
There's right.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, she's clothed with the sun. That's correct. And so moon's under her feet, right? Crown of 12 stars on her head.
Yep.
All that's there. And so there's a dragon. The dragon says it has 7 heads and 10 horns. And on its heads were 7 crowns. So heads,
like those
horns,
fall off.
crowns. Its tail swept away a third of the stars in heaven and hurled them to the earth.
I'm pretty sure I tried to put 7 crowns on me at least at Burger King one time, and that just doesn't work.
Did it not? Your head didn't hold all 7?
No.
Well, but again, remember, they've got 7 heads, so it can be a crown per head.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So you probably were able to keep 1 Burger King crown on your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good. All right. So its tail swept away a third.
I had it my way.
I bet you did. All right. So yeah, then there's this dragon, and then she gives birth to a son, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the dragon is upset about it. And then it says in verse 7, then a war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon.
Okay.
The dragon and his angels also fought, but he could not prevail. There's no place for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was thrown out, the ancient serpent. And this is kind of alluding back to Genesis 3.
Oh.
All right?
The talking
snake. The ancient serpent.
So the snake is now a dragon.
Right.
Okay.
Who is called the devil and Satan, the one who deceives the whole world. He was thrown to earth and his angels with him. And so, and obviously you see in here, a lot of people talk about the fact that, okay, this is where, Satan is actually thrown out of heaven with a third of the angels. Okay. And they pull that from this, but Whether that can actually be pulled from here or not is, I think, up for debate because of the context of this.
Okay.
Because it seems to be speaking of another time, right? Of a future time.
Okay.
And so
who is this woman?
Man, that's a whole nother episode. I mean, honestly,
Okay.
Because it's like some people will say the woman is Mary. Okay.
Okay.
Some people will say the woman.
The Catholics say it was Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the son that was given birth to Jesus, right?
Right. Okay.
And so dragon against Jesus. Others will say, no, this is like looking into the future, and this is more symbolic than actually literal.
Okay.
And so it's actually referring to the bride of Christ. And then
us?
Yeah, like
all right.
us. And
So
but
who's
then
the kid?
right, but then there's another theory that I've read by another scholar, and so he actually believes this will be like almost like virgin birth kind of thing happening again, but like future, but not like with like messiahs, but with future kids,
Now I have to know everything about this.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's so many kind of theories on this. It's kind of wild.
We have to do end times.
We should do it in time. Yeah, we should do end times episodes.
Which is going to take a year.
They're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's so many theories on everything, right? And you have to get into the, are you amillennial, premillennial,
okay, so what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah. I say drugs. That's what I'm going with this whole time.
Yeah, I know. Everything's drugs.
Yeah.
To be honest with you on this one, I'm not really sure. Because this one is, again, it's an interlude thrown into Revelation in some ways. So
where'd we get dragons from then?
Right.
Because this just shows up here at the end.
Yeah, it does.
So did dragons used to exist?
Well, at least the thought of dragons did. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he's obviously pulling from something, that the world would have known about.
Okay.
I'm not saying there necessarily were dragons, but that they, at least the stories, the creation of dragons and, kind of imagination has already happened at this point. Absolutely.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and because what's interesting in this particular passage is that, again, it talks about the woman flees to the wilderness. A place is prepared for her by God to be nourished there for 1,260 days. And that 1,260 days is an important thing. That's 3.5 years. And so you hear, this is where we can get into kind of the end time stuff, the timeline and the 3.5 years. And when does the rapture happen, not happen? When does the judgment happen or not happen? All that kind of stuff. So
I just want to talk about dragons.
All right. Well, let's keep talking about dragons.
Okay.
How about we? And so there in Revelation 9 again, dragon is thrown out, the ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan. Okay. And then later on in Revelation chapter 20, where the dragon, we see a picture of the dragon once again. In chapter 20, verse 2, he sees the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss, closed it, put a seal on it, so that he would no longer deceive the nations until 1,000 years were completed. And so this is during the millennial reign of Christ, Satan is bound.
On earth?
On earth. Yes.
Wait, Satan's bound in an abyss, but Jesus is on earth?
But Jesus is on earth.
For 1,000 years.
For 1,000 years. That's correct.
In the end times.
In the end times, correct.
Why? Why not just take us to heaven?
Well, okay.
Screw this place.
Yeah.
Why do we got to stay here?
All right, but see, so that's one of the interesting things. Most people think that our eternity is in heaven, but it's actually not. Because, all right, heaven.
Oh, right. It's in
new creation.
Earth
It's
too.
Right. It's in new creation.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in new creation.
All right.
Right. And so actually our home forever will be the new creation here. Okay.
And we don't know what that's going to be like.
Well, we have some pictures of it in Revelation.
There's just not going to be dragons.
Revelation 21:22. You're right. There will be no dragons. Because again, we're saying dragon, but it's not a it's not a literal dragon. Like in Revelation, this is not a literal dragon.
Okay.
It's because it's Satan, right? It's Satan.
So he could be whatever he wants.
Right. So Satan's not a dragon.
Right?
Right.
He could show up however he wants to look.
Yeah. Well, in other words, it's like, see, like a shapeshifter.
Right.
I don't know if Satan is a shapeshifter.
All right.
I do think he is able, he and the demonic, the demons, the demonic angels, they're able to obviously enter in, possess, influence beings.
So real dragon.
So you're going back to real dragon. Yeah, I'm going to say no to the real dragon.
Okay.
But
so you don't know it, but
it's
whatever it says in the Bible
whatever
isn't
Satan
true.
looks like. I think that's a whole other thing too, right? Like
Right.
we're not actually sure what Satan actually looks like.
Okay.
So do I think he's a dragon? No. Do I know what he actually looks like? No.
Okay.
Because that's not clear here either. Yeah.
Okay, so dragons aren't real.
No. Dragons aren't real.
Even though there's one in the Bible.
And this is the thing. Because this is the thing with Revelation,
So
right?
all the other ones that we've talked about so far are actual stuff.
I'm going.
But this one's not.
Right. I know that sounds crazy.
Okay.
But here's why. Because it's, again, it's talking about like like when you read.
I guess you can't wear the sun either.
Right. That's what I was
Okay.
going to get to. Like Revelation is so symbolic in nature.
Yeah.
That you have to read it. And I think this is one of the things where that's actually an important thing to note about all of this is, when we're reading things like Revelation, for example, it's apocalyptic literature. So we have to read it as if it's apocalyptic literature. And I think where one of and what I'm getting to here is
like The Walking Dead.
Is Walking, I guess, Walking Dead, sure. Yeah. I mean, like, my point is being is like when you read the Bible, it's interesting. Like people will be like, well, no, you have to read it literally or just not literally at all or whatever. I'm like, no, you read it according to the genre of the book you're reading.
Okay.
So, for example, when I read Genesis is a historical book.
Okay.
So I read it as a historical book. Therefore, that's why when I read Genesis 3, I don't read it as fable. I read it as a historical book, right? When I read things like the story of Job, or when I'm reading, that's, or Ecclesiastes or whatever, that's wisdom literature. So I'm going to read that as wisdom literature. When I'm reading the Psalms, that's poetry. So I'm going to read it as poetry. I'm not going to take all that literal because it's poetry, right?
And Revelation is just nonsense.
Yeah. Well, Revelation, and then you have parts of Daniel, and some other parts throughout Scripture, but Daniel, Revelation, you have a lot of apocalyptic literature. So you have to read it as apocalyptic literature, which means it's going to have a lot of symbolism, right?
What other anything is considered apocalyptic literature outside the Bible?
Oh, well, so there's already apocalyptic literature occurring in like the ancient Near East. So this isn't like this isn't like a new, like, we're not coming up with like a new genre.
Okay.
You're right. Because even like the ancient Near East, like there's like when we were talking about the seraphim and the cherubim earlier, like they even had their own stories
about those things,
about cherubs. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so
that's what I know cherubs are.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe.
Is that what, did they turn them into babies with bows and arrows?
No, we did
Isn't that those things?
Yeah. That happened a little later.
Okay.
Yes. But yes. And so but what I'm saying is like, we do realize that there's all this, like, like the Bible doesn't have, the first poetic literature, right? Like there's, in other words, as the people of Israel are growing up in the nation surrounding them in the ancient Near East, there's all this other form of literature happening, right?
Okay.
And so like, for example, in the ancient Near East, you hear a lot of other flood stories.
Right.
But the flood story
Gilgamesh.
is not right. Bingo. Gilgamesh. Mm-hmm. Right. And there are people that be like, well,
which was written hundreds of years before the Bible, so this one's the real one or whatever.
Right. And that's
the Bible stole it from this.
Correct.
And blah, blah, blah.
And that's one of the arguments, right?
Yeah.
And so Yeah, and so there's all these other flood stories, and so yeah, the Bible doesn't have the only flood story.
Right.
But I think that's interesting because I think it actually probably lends itself to the fact that there's all the other flood stories from all the other nations. There probably was a flood.
Right.
Now it's a matter of, well, how do we interpret how
Whose
that
flood is the right flood?
Right.
Okay.
How did that flood happen? How did it occur? Why did it occur? Those kind of things, right?
Okay. So did the dragon talk?
Did the dragon talk like as a dragon?
No, as like a
As a person?
as like a donkey. As if like a donkey would talk.
Okay. No, we don't have dragon talking.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All
Only
right.
talking serpents or serpent and talking donkey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the dragon's not real.
No.
All right.
The dragon's symbolic.
Cool.
As far as I'm concerned.
Now I don't like that verse anymore.
Well, I'm sorry to ruin the whole story.
I want to
for
see
you.
a dragon.
Okay.
You know what the end times needs though?
What does the end times need, Nick?
What one of those like 7:30 a.m. is a meet and greet, and then 8 a.m. is our first session. You know, like one of those things. What are those called? An itinerary?
Yeah, you need an itinerary?
Yeah.
Of what's going on?
Like, what are we doing all weekend? You know, type thing. Like,
well, okay, why do the end times need an itinerary?
Because nobody knows what
Well,
order to put anything in.
Right.
And God needs to send us one of those.
Well, I think he
so that we can all not talk about this anymore.
yeah, he kind of did give us an itinerary a little bit,
But nobody knows when things are happening.
but we're told no one's going to know when it's all like. In other words,
But
like
what if we show up late?
you know, if you show up
How are we
late,
supposed to know?
if you show up late, you got left out
Okay.
on purpose, and that's not a good thing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Oh, right. During that part. Okay.
right. You don't want to get left out,
Okay.
right? But
I'll just blame it on the fact that I didn't have an itinerary.
But in saying that, I also don't believe like this is like I don't like I say left out. I think so. Christ is coming. I think the question is like when is he actually coming? Right
In the end times.
in the end times, and then how that plays itself out. Who knows? Because you have the people that are like,
That's what I'm saying.
like you have like the pre-trib people. They have like their maps and charts and those kind of things, and you got mid-trib people. Here's their maps and charts, and then you got post-trib people, and here's their maps and charts, and
Yeah.
so yeah, everybody's got their maps and charts.
I'm going to hope I'm dead before that. All the dead people already don't have to do any of this, right? They
Right.
can just stay in heaven and watch.
Right, we're just in heaven.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So more than likely,
I hope that's what happens.
Yeah, more than likely, you and I will already be dead by the time all this starts.
Yeah. I don't want to deal with it.
out. Right. Well, you don't have to, so it's
Yeah,
great.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then at some point you'll just get to come back with Christ. And hey, talking about animals, he's coming back on a horse.
What, does it talk?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No, but he's got a horse.
Jesus has a horse?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm kind of hoping we get to come
Hope
back on
it's-
horses too.
It better have a cool name.
Well, I don't know what the
Yeah.
name of it is, but
Okay.
yeah, but it says he's coming back on a horse. So I'm kind of hoping that we get to have a horse. That would be awesome.
We all get our own horse.
Yeah, we all get to come flying back in.
In
Like,
new creation.
yeah,
Does the
like-
horse have wings?
yeah. Like, let's read about the horse.
All right. Next question. The talking horse.
All right, there's not a talking horse.
Wait, this horse has wings though?
No, I don't know if the horse has like. All right, let me just read about the horse.
All right.
Okay. All right. Verse 11. Then I said, all right.
Of what?
All right. I'm sorry. Sorry, we're still in Revelation.
Okay.
Chapter 19, verse 11.
All right.
Then I saw heaven opened, and there was a white horse. Its rider is called Faithful and True, and with justice he judges and makes war. So, and then we're going to skip down to verse 14. The armies that were in heaven followed him on white horses, wearing pure white linen. So I don't think there's wings on these horses, but maybe there are. I don't know. But there's horses.
They can at least fly.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, right. And I'm hoping, right. I mean,
Somehow they get down here.
right. And so
Unless we all just fall.
heaven opens and we just,
Yeah.
yeah. So, no.
Dun, dun, dun.
But and it says the armies that were in heaven followed him on white horses. I'm kind of hoping that's us.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we'd have horses
Were the
too.
horses wearing the clothes, the linens, or the people wearing the linens?
The armies, the people are wearing the
Okay.
linen. Yeah.
All right.
The pure white linen.
So there's flying horses.
Yeah. So so apparently there's flying horses too.
Okay.
Right.
Great. I want a flying horse.
That's what I'm saying. Who don't want a flying horse?
I keep saying that, though. I don't know why we're trying so hard to have flying cars when we haven't figured out flying horses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like we're skipping forward a step when that's the next step. That we
Right.
should take.
Obviously, the horse has
Yeah.
to fly
Yeah.
before the car.
Right.
That perfect sense.
I mean, makes sense.
Perfect. I mean, 100%. Yeah.
Cool.
We're putting the car before the horse.
Yes.
Sweet.
Which doesn't make sense. Congratulations. You're a doctor. All right. Cool. Enough about dragons and horses.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah. I'm
Next. Okay, well, there's more talking animals to come.
good. I don't know that. Well, I don't know there's any more talking animals.
What are all the other ones that we wrote down so people know what's coming?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Leviathan.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about the behemoth.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about, so let me say this. By doing so, we're going to talk about were dinosaurs real?
Oh,
Yeah. So we're going to get into that world.
really?
Yeah, of dinosaurs. And
Dragons weren't real.
dragons probably were not real unless they were. But yeah, they're probably not real. And so,
I mean, we have dinosaur bones, so where do
Yeah.
we get those from? Did people
Yeah.
just make them up?
right. So we're going to talk about dinosaurs.
Okay.
And if there were dinosaurs, when were there dinosaurs?
Okay.
So dinosaurs. And then, of course, the Nephilim.
Oh, good.
Because everybody loves a good story about the Nephilim.
Right. Because we haven't talked about that enough.
I don't know why people are obsessed with the Nephilim, but they're obsessed with the Nephilim.
Because they're protective of their girlfriends.
I guess so. I guess so. If you don't know what that means, stay tuned. All right. So, yeah. So an episode on Nephilim.
Because they came down and took them all.
Right. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about Nephilim and dinosaurs.
Okay. Isn't there more? I feel like the list was longer.
I mean, there's other just crazy stories, but
About
not like
animals
Not
and
but
stuff?
like I don't think like with animals. Though.
Okay.
Yeah. And Nephilim really aren't animals. They're just creatures.
Oh, I got another question.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that animals... This isn't a real question.
Okay.
This is just to fill time. Do you think that animals were different before the flood? Like, did he get every single animal on there?
Okay.
Or were there, like, crazy weird ones
Right.
that we said nah to?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Noah
So
did?
it says that he got one of each kind. And so, no, did we get like every one? No.
Okay. So there could be crazy versions of animals out there that all died during the flood that we just don't have anymore.
Dinosaurs.
Oh. Okay.
Maybe.
But maybe not just dinosaurs. then.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
And you kind of got to wonder about like all the like the sea creatures and stuff too. Right. So,
Right.
I mean, because in the flood, the
Loch
flood
Ness
happened.
Monster.
But if you're in the water, flood happens. Does that really affect you that much? Right.
I don't know.
So question. Yeah. The only other like animal like there's always the fish in Jonah.
Oh yeah.
You know, and people wonder like,
forgot
is that a
about
real fish or is that not a real fish?
Right.
And so I 100% believe it's a real fish
But he was in there for 3 days,
for 3 days
just picking bits of
of stuff.
stuff off
Yeah.
of this fish's teeth and eating it and drinking salt water.
Well, yeah, it's definitely an odd
Was there
story.
a filter in there?
Right. It's definitely an odd story, but it's interesting because and people go, was it a well? Is it not a well? Or whatever. I don't think we get hung up on the kind of fish that it is, but it's obviously a large fish, and the Lord appointed that fish to be there to do that. So it very well could have been the Lord created this fish for this purpose, for that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Got a job for you.
Right. I need you to swallow that, dude.
I need you to swallow this guy, but don't eat him for 3 days.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
We can talk about that too.
Okay.
cool.
Yeah. So, but I kind of think that's, that's kind of, to me, is a simple story.
But Nephilim's going to take 4 episodes. So.
No, it's not. People get so caught up. Like, there's all these theories of things they think Nephilim have done. And I'm like, how do you know this? Like, or what leads you to this conclusion? But anyway.
Okay.
I'm way more skeptical of all the things the Nephilim have done than some people are.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been the When I Heard This podcast. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at When I Heard This Podcast, and X and locals at When I Heard This. Ring the notification bell. Tell everyone that you know about the show, and go to the website where there's t-shirts. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Nate Robinsoff. You can follow Joseph on Instagram at
Rev Joe T.
This has been the When I Heard This podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.